What happened today? I hit her. I was like, she hit you, huh? Nope. Did she say something mean to you? She didn't get a chance. What happened?
Really hard to believe. They say that this was a woman, a family friend, a babysitter that we trusted. We're talking about 3-year-old Harmony Henderson. She has autism and actually cannot speak. She was with that babysitter last weekend on Sunday when she was allegedly doused with scalding water. And then the babysitter took her head and smashed it in the bathtub.
Girl, when I tell you this case made me sick, like physically sick. We're talking about a 3-year-old, autistic, couldn't even speak, and the person who was supposed to be watching her locked her in a room for 3 hours to go smoke weed. Then when the baby got sick and threw up, poured hot water on her and bashed her head into a bathtub. Is that what we doing now? Killing babies because they threw up? Harmony Henderson deserved better. Way better. You know where you at. You're watching Shadowed Crimes TV. We tell the stories that need to be told. Domestic violence, toxic relationships, and the lives lost behind closed doors. No sugarcoating, no excuses, just the truth. If you're new here, subscribe and join us as we shed light on shadowed stories. Harmony Henderson was 3 years old. She had autism, which meant she couldn't talk, couldn't tell you if she was hungry, couldn't tell you if she was hurt, couldn't tell you nothing. She lived in Detroit with her mama, Paris, England, and her father, Marquise Henderson. They were doing what every parent does, trying to work, trying to provide, trying to make it. And like a lot of parents, they needed help sometimes. Childcare is expensive. Babysitters cost money. So when you got somebody you trust, somebody who's been around, somebody who knows your family, you lean on them. That's just how it is. For Paris, that person was Isha Harris, 30 years old, not just some babysitter off an app. This was a family friend, had been for years, long enough that Paris never thought twice about leaving Harmony with her. I would never in a million years thought she would did this to my baby, Paris would say later. Never in a million years. Aisha had babysat Harmony plenty of times before. There was no reason to think this time would be any different. No red flags, no warning signs. Just another Sunday where Mama had to handle business and needed someone to watch her baby girl. Harmony was a sweet child, quiet because she couldn't speak. But she had her ways of communicating. Her family knew her, they understood her, and she didn't bother nobody. She was just existing, just being a little girl, that's all. But on this particular Sunday, Paris made a decision that would haunt her for the rest of her life. She dropped Harmony off at Aisha Harris's house on Detroit's west side, left her baby with someone she trusted, someone she thought would keep her safe. Oh, how wrong she was. So here's what went down that Sunday. Aisha Harris had Harmony at her house. She also had her own 1-year-old baby there. 2 small children. 2 babies who needed supervision, attention, care. Basic things, right? But Aisha had other plans. She had a friend come over. They wanted to smoke weed. And look, I'm not here to judge nobody for smoking. Adults do what adults do. But when you got 2 babies in your care, when one of them belongs to somebody else, when one of them can't even tell nobody if something goes wrong, you handle your business first. Aisha didn't do that. Instead, she took both children, Harmony and her own baby, and locked them in a bedroom, shut that door and left them in there. For 3 hours. 3 whole hours, while she sat in another room getting high with her friend. 3 hours is a long time when you're 3 years old. A long time when you can't talk. A long time when you're locked away and nobody's checking on you. And that's when things went left. At some point during those 3 hours, Harmony got sick. She threw up on herself. Now, babies throw up. That's what they do. It's not pleasant, but it happens. You clean them up. You comfort them. You make sure they're okay. That's what a caregiver does. That's what a decent human being does. But Aisha Harris? She got mad. She got frustrated. According to what would come out later, she was overwhelmed. Had her own baby, had Harmony, had been smoking for hours. And when she saw that Harmony had thrown up on herself, she snapped. Paris would later say, "I think she got frustrated with her. And then, plus her daughter. And she slammed my baby's head against the tub." That's exactly what happened. But it was worse than just that. Aisha took Harmony to the bathroom, put her in the bathtub. And this is where it gets real hard to talk about. This is where you gotta brace yourself. She poured scalding hot water on that baby's face, on her head. Hot enough to burn, hot enough to hurt. Harmony couldn't even scream properly because she couldn't talk like other kids. She was defenseless, completely defenseless. But Aisha didn't stop there. She took Harmony's head and smashed it into the side of the bathtub. Not once, multiple times. Blunt force trauma is what the autopsy would call it later. Blunt force trauma to a 3-year-old autistic baby who couldn't speak, couldn't fight back, couldn't do nothing but suffer. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine the pain? The confusion? Harmony didn't understand what was happening or why. All she knew was hurt. And then, after all that, after burning her and beating her, Aisha just left her. Didn't call 911. Didn't call Paris. Didn't do nothing. Later that day, Paris did what any mama would do. She video called to check on her baby. She wanted to see Harmony's face, wanted to make sure everything was good. When Aisha answered that call, Harmony was still alive, but she was hurt, badly hurt. And Aisha lied straight to Paris's face, told her Harmony fell down some stairs, just missed a step, bumped her head. Nothing serious. She told me everything was okay, Paris remembered. I sent her through the video chat. She was okay. Except Harmony wasn't okay. Not even close. But Paris had no way of knowing that. She trusted Aisha. She believed her. That night, Harmony died. Somewhere in those dark hours, that baby took her last breath, alone, in pain, in a house that wasn't hers, with a woman who had just beaten her. The next morning, Paris showed up at Aisha's house to pick up her daughter. She walked into that bedroom where Harmony had been left, and her baby was just laying there, motionless, cold. "Yeah, she was already dead from the moment I got there," Paris would say, her voice empty. "Yeah, she was gone. Gone. Just like that. A 3-year-old who'd been alive and fine the day before was now dead. And 911 still hadn't been called. Aisha had let that baby die and said nothing, did nothing. Paris and Aisha ended up rushing Harmony to the hospital, but it was too late. Way too late. There was nothing doctors could do. Harmony Henderson was pronounced dead, and the truth was about to come crashing down. Because Aisha Harris, the woman they trusted, the family friend, was about to confess to exactly what she'd done. So now we're at the hospital. Harmony is dead. Paris is in shock. Aisha is standing there, and she knows what she did. She knows. Detroit Police Captain Lori Carter leads the Special Victims Unit. This woman deals with domestic violence, sex crimes, child abuse, the worst of the worst. She's seen things that would break most people. But when she got the call about Harmony Henderson that Sunday, when she arrived at the hospital and saw that little girl's body, even she was shaken.
So when I got to the hospital, the child had already been conveyed by the mother and also the friend. The child was deceased when I arrived.
Just matter of fact, professional. But you could hear it in her voice. This one hit different. Because this wasn't just child abuse. This was betrayal on a whole other level. This was a family friend. Someone who'd been trusted for years. Someone who was supposed to protect this baby. When Captain Carter was asked how disturbed she was by the details, she didn't hesitate.
I was very disturbed. Nothing like this should ever happen to a child.
Nothing like this should ever happen to a child. Period. But it did happen. And now the police had to figure out exactly what went down. Here's the thing about investigations like this: the evidence doesn't lie. Harmony's injuries told a story. Burns on her face and head from scalding water, blunt force trauma to her skull. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a fall down the stairs like Aisha had claimed. This was violence. This was rage acted out on a defenseless child. And when Detroit police started questioning Aisha Harris, she broke. She confessed, told them everything about locking the kids in the room, about smoking weed for 3 hours, about Harmony throwing up, about losing her temper, about the bathtub, about the hot water, about smashing that baby's head into the tub. She confessed to it all. Moving on to what happened next, because this is where it gets even more painful for the family. Marquise Henderson, Harmony's father, had to sit down and read his daughter's autopsy report. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine having to read, in medical terms, how your child died, what was done to her, how much she suffered? He got to the cause of death and he said it out loud.
Blunt force trauma. Blunt force trauma. A 3-year-old autistic baby.
Then he said it again, like he couldn't believe the words coming out of his own mouth. Blunt force trauma. A 3-year-old autistic baby. His voice broke. Because how do you process that? How do you wrap your mind around the fact that someone you trusted took your baby and beat her to death? Paris, Harmony's mother, was barely holding it together. "I didn't cry so much," she would say. It's like I don't even know if there's no more tears left in there. No more tears left, because she'd cried them all. Because the pain was too deep for tears at that point. It was just emptiness, just shock, just the nightmare of knowing your baby suffered. And you couldn't stop it. Paris kept replaying everything in her mind. The video call. Aisha saying everything was fine. Harmony sitting there looking hurt but alive. If Paris had known, if she'd had any idea what Aisha had done, she would have gotten there sooner. She would have called 911. She would have done something. But Aisha lied. Looked her right in the face through that phone screen and lied. Told her it was just a bump from falling down the stairs.
From my knowledge, it was just a fall down the stairs, that she just missed her step, and that's all it was. She told me everything was okay, and that was it. Like, I seen her through the video chat. She was okay.
Except she wasn't okay. She was dying. And Aisha knew it. That's what makes this so hard to stomach. Aisha had hours to do the right thing. Hours to call for help. Hours to try to save Harmony's life. But she didn't. She let that baby die alone in a bed, then acted like she didn't know what happened. Detroit police made it clear: if you're ever overwhelmed, if you're ever frustrated with a child in your care, you call 911. You call for help. You don't hurt them. You don't ignore them. You get them help. But Aisha Harris made a different choice. And now a 3-year-old was dead. The community was in shock. This happened in Detroit, on the west side, in a neighborhood where people knew each other, where families looked out for families, and now everyone was questioning who they could trust. How do you know? How do you ever really know? Detroit police told the news that just in the first part of that year alone, their child abuse unit had received 420 reports of child abuse. 420. And those were just the ones that got reported. How many more were happening behind closed doors? How many more kids were suffering in silence? Harmony couldn't speak. Couldn't tell nobody what was happening. She was one of the most vulnerable, and the system that was supposed to protect her failed. The person who was supposed to care for her failed. Everything failed. Harmony Henderson.
I didn't cry so much. I don't even know if there's no more tears left in there.
They trusted their family friend, 30-year-old Aisha Harris, who would babysit little Harmony Henderson often.
I would never in a million years thought she would do this to my baby.
This week, Marquise Henderson had to read his daughter's autopsy report.
Blunt force trauma. Blunt force trauma. a 3-year-old autistic baby.
Harmony had autism and could not speak. She was doused with scalding water on her face and head. Then her head was smashed into the side of the bathtub, allegedly by Harris, who Detroit police say confessed to the crime.
Okay, even if you think you trust the person, you can't.
Mom, Paris England, left Harmony with Harris Sunday at her home on Detroit's west side. Harris apparently locked Harmony and her own 1-year-old in a bedroom so she could smoke weed with a friend for 3 hours. Harmony threw up on herself, enraging Harris, leading to the horrific abuse in a bathtub. When Paris video called afterwards to check in, Harmony was still alive. Harris said she fell down a stair and bumped her head.
From my knowledge, it was just a fall down the stairs that she just missed her step, and that's all it was. She told me everything was okay, and that was it. Like, I sent her through the video chat. She was okay.
But when Paris got there the next morning, Harmony was in bed motionless.
Yeah, she was already dead from the moment I got there. Yeah, she was gone.
They say she died sometime overnight. 911 was never called. Harris, charged in court with murder, remanded to custody Thursday, the same day of Harmony's viewing.
Like, the way the sun is shining on me now, I feel like that's my baby. She with me. She letting, it's gonna be okay.
Aisha Harris was arrested and charged with murder and child abuse. They took her into custody, and she was held without bond, meaning she wasn't going nowhere. She was staying locked up until her case went to trial. When she showed up for her first court appearance, she was remanded to custody. The judge wasn't playing. The prosecutor laid out the evidence, the confession, the autopsy, the timeline. All of it pointed to one thing. Aisha Harris had killed Harmony Henderson. That first court date happened on the same day as Harmony's viewing. While the family was at the funeral home, saying goodbye to their baby girl, Aisha was in a courtroom in an orange jumpsuit facing murder charges. But it wasn't okay. How could it be okay? Her baby was gone, murdered by someone she trusted. And now she had to plan a funeral, had to pick out a casket for a 3-year-old, had to stand there and look at Harmony's little body and know she'd never see her grow up, never hear her voice, even though Harmony couldn't speak, never watch her learn and play and just be. The funeral happened the next day. Family and friends came out to say goodbye, to mourn a life that was stolen way too soon. People were angry, hurt, confused. How did this happen? Why did this happen? And the answer was simple but terrible. It happened because Aisha Harris chose violence over compassion. She chose rage over responsibility. She chose to hurt a defenseless child instead of asking for help. The case moved forward. Prosecutors were going for the maximum. This wasn't manslaughter. This wasn't an accident. This was murder. Premeditated or not, when you pour scalding water on a child and bash their head into a bathtub, you know what you're doing. You know the harm you're causing. Detroit. Police Captain Carter wanted to make something clear to the public. If you're ever in a situation where you're overwhelmed with a child, where you're feeling like you can't handle it, you call for help. You don't have to worry about bothering 911. They'd rather get a call from someone who needs help than respond to a dead child. We'd rather get the call then for something like this to happen, Captain Carter said. No one wants to ever see something like this to ever happen again. But it did happen. And now Harmony's family had to live with that reality every single day. Paris started a GoFundMe to help with funeral expenses. The community came together, donated what they could. Detroit police said they'd help the family with counseling, with financial support, with whatever they needed as they tried to process this trauma. Because that's what it was, trauma. The kind that doesn't go away, the kind that stays with you forever. Paris would never trust anyone the same way again. Marquise would carry the weight of that autopsy report in his mind for the rest of his life. Blunt force trauma. Blunt force trauma. A 3-year-old autistic baby. The preliminary hearings moved forward. Evidence was presented. Aisha's confession was read in court. The autopsy report was entered as evidence. Photos of Harmony's injuries were shown to the judge. It was all there, clear as day. Aisha's defense tried to argue diminished capacity, tried to say she was overwhelmed, tried to make excuses, but at the end of the day, there was no excuse for what she did. None. The case was bound over to circuit court. Aisha would face a jury. And that jury would have to look at the evidence, hear the testimony, see the photos, and decide what justice looked like for Harmony Henderson. But here's the thing, no verdict was going to bring that baby back. No prison sentence was going to undo the pain. No amount of time behind bars was going to make this right. Harmony was gone, and her family was left to pick up the pieces of a life shattered by betrayal and violence. Eventually, Aisha Harris made a decision. She decided to take a plea deal, pled guilty to the charges, murder and child abuse. She knew the evidence was stacked against her. She knew her own confession had sealed her fate. So instead of going to trial, she admitted what she did. But that didn't mean the sentencing hearing was going to be easy. Oh, it was about to be a whole situation. The hearing was set. The family was ready to face Aisha in court, ready to tell her exactly what they thought about what she'd done, ready to look her in the eyes and make sure she understood the pain she'd caused. But Aisha? She had other plans. When it came time for the sentencing hearing, Aisha Harris refused to come into the courtroom, said she didn't feel safe, said it was because the news cameras were there, and she was worried about her safety. Let me tell you something. The judge was not having it. Judge Kelly Ramsey called out Aisha's excuse for exactly what it was, disingenuous. Because, here's the thing, Aisha's mugshot had already been all over the news. Her face was already known. This had been a press case from the beginning. This has been a press case before. So her face is known, the judge said. So, what was the real reason Aisha didn't want to show up? She didn't want to face that family. She didn't want to look at Paris and Marquise and see the pain in their eyes. She didn't want to be held accountable in that moment. That's what it was. The courtroom was packed. And I mean packed. Nearly 30 Wayne County Sheriff's deputies lined the walls. Why so many? Because at the last hearing, things had gotten out of control. A brawl had erupted between the families. Deputies got hurt trying to break it up. So this time, they weren't taking any chances. The tension in that room was thick. You could feel it. The family was grieving, angry, hurt. They wanted justice. They wanted Aisha to feel even a fraction of the pain they were feeling. After some back and forth, Fox 2 News agreed to blur Aisha's face in their coverage. They did it to keep the hearing moving, to prevent any more delays, because at the end of the day, this family deserved closure. They deserved to have their say. So Aisha finally came into the courtroom, and the family got their chance to speak. One family member stood up and said what so many were feeling. She was only 3. She barely said a couple words. She didn't bother nobody. That's what hurt the most. Harmony wasn't doing nothing wrong. She was just a baby, an autistic baby who couldn't even speak. She wasn't causing trouble. She wasn't being bad. She threw up because she got sick. That's it. And for that, she was tortured and killed. Another family member spoke about the suffering, about the images that wouldn't leave their mind. Just the thought that she suffered. I can't get that out of my mind. Because that's what haunts you. Not just that Harmony died, but that she suffered, that she felt pain, that she was scared and hurt and didn't understand why. That's the part that keeps you up at night. That's the part that breaks you. Then, Judge Ramsey held up a piece of paper, Aisha's so-called apology letter, and the judge did not mince words. But the 6 letters here, I'm sorry, barely reaches an apology. 6 sentences, that's all Aisha wrote. 6 sentences after taking a child's life, after torturing a defenseless baby, after betraying a family's trust in the worst way possible. 6 sentences. And they barely even said sorry. The judge wasn't impressed. The family wasn't impressed. Nobody was buying whatever weak apology Aisha tried to offer. Then came the moment everyone was waiting for. The sentence. Judge Kelly Ramsey sentenced Aisha Harris to 28 to 50 years in prison. At the earliest, she'd be out sometime before her 60th birthday, almost 3 decades behind bars, half a century at the maximum. But here's what the family knew: no amount of time was enough. Nothing would bring Harmony back. Nothing would undo what happened. But at least Aisha would pay. At least she'd lose her freedom the way Harmony lost her life. And the family made sure Aisha knew exactly what was waiting for her behind those prison walls. One family member looked right at Aisha and said, "I hate you so much." No holding back, no politeness. Just raw, honest rage. Because how else you supposed to feel when someone murders your baby? Then came the warning. "I believe that she's going to suffer in jail. You're not going to make it. They're going to get you. They will. You're going to pay for what you did to her. You will. Because in prison, child killers don't have it easy. Other inmates know what you did, and they don't take kindly to people who hurt babies." Aisha was about to walk into a world where her crime made her a target, where every day would be a struggle, where she'd have to watch her back constantly. And honestly, the family felt like that was part of the justice, that Aisha would know fear, that she'd know what it's like to feel unsafe, that she'd understand, even just a little bit, what Harmony must have felt in those final moments. The hearing ended. Aisha was let out in handcuffs. The family left the courtroom emotionally drained but relieved it was over. The legal part, anyway. The emotional part? That was going to last forever. Harmony Henderson was 3 years old when her life was stolen from her. She had her whole future ahead of her. She could have grown up, could have learned to communicate in her own way, could have lived a full life surrounded by people who loved her. But Aisha Harris took that away. Took it away over frustration, over anger, over something as simple as a child throwing up. This case shook Detroit, shook the whole community, because it made people realize that you can't always tell who's safe and who's not. You can trust someone for years, call them family, let them into your life, and they can still turn out to be dangerous. Paris, England will never be the same. She'll always carry the guilt of leaving Harmony with Aisha that day, even though she had no way of knowing what would happen. She'll always wonder if there was something she could have done differently, some sign she missed, some way she could have protected her baby. Marquise Henderson will always hear those words in his head. Blunt, force trauma. Blunt force trauma. A 3-year-old autistic baby. That's the kind of pain that doesn't fade. It just becomes part of you. And Harmony? She's gone. But her story matters. It matters because it's a warning. It's a reminder that child abuse is real, that it happens more than we want to admit, and that we all have a responsibility to protect the most vulnerable among us. If you're ever in a situation where you're caring for a child and you feel overwhelmed, you call for help. You call 911. You call a family member. You call someone. You don't hurt that child. You don't ignore them. You get them help. And if you see something, if you suspect a child is being abused, you speak up. You report it. Because staying silent can cost a life. Harmony Henderson deserved so much better than what she got. She deserved to be safe. She deserved to grow up. She deserved to be loved and protected. Instead, she became another statistic. Another child lost to violence. Another name we have to remember because someone failed to do the right thing. But we're not going to let her be forgotten. We're telling her story so that maybe, just maybe, it prevents another tragedy, so that parents think twice about who they trust, so that caregivers understand the weight of the responsibility they carry, so that communities stay vigilant and look out for the children who can't speak for themselves. Rest in peace, Harmony Henderson. You deserved the world. Hit that subscribe button. We're here to make sure children like Harmony are never forgotten. If you know a child in danger, speak up. Call the authorities. Your voice could save a life. Drop a comment, share this video, and we'll see you next time with another story that needs to be told. This is Shadowed Crimes TV. Stay safe.